Alright everyone, time to do my picks for UFC 182 Jones vs. Cormier. This is the first pay-per-view I plan on actually watching in quite a while. It's a very captivating main event. The undercard looks pretty decent, and I expect it to be a pretty darn good way to start off the new year if you're an MMA fan. Alright, well to begin, the main event obviously is the light heavyweight championship. Jon Jones taking on Daniel Cormier. I think this is going to be a very interesting fight. Really, as far as styles go, certainly one of the most intriguing matchups we've had as a championship bout in the UFC in quite a while. When you look at this matchup on paper, Jon Jones obviously has been a great fighter, and he's been basically a champion this long because of his ability to strike, his ability to keep opponents at range, and his very solid wrestling. You see him, he's only really been in trouble since he's won the title twice. There was the fight against Lyoto Machida where he was doing the counter punch, but he ended up closing the gap in the second round and choking him out. So he solved that problem. And the one, of course, the bout where he almost lost the title was, of course, the one against Gustafsson, where Gustafsson actually out-wrestled him and was able to kind of get inside and take the fight to Jones, so he couldn't rely on that range attack. So when you look at Jones, we know what his strengths are: striking, wrestling. He's a very powerful fighter. And we know what his weaknesses are. That's the fact that if you can take him down, you can beat him. If you cannot close the gap, you can beat him. And I think there is no fighter in the UFC right now who I think has the ability to A, out-wrestle Jones, and B, close the gap and prevent that range attack strategy against Jones than Daniel Cormier. And Cormier is the strongest fighter Jon Jones has ever fought. When you see Jones going up against guys like Chael Sonnen, Vitor Belfort, it's obvious the dudes are not really in the same category with them. I had to go up a weight class. They just don't have the power behind them, the sheer force that Jon Jones had. Now, this is really interesting because this is going to put Jones in a situation where not only is he facing a dude who he cannot outpower, but I think a dude who's clearly a better wrestler all around. And I think Daniel Cormier has a really good striking defense, a fantastic takedown defense, and I think he's going to be able to do something that Jones has never experienced before. He's going to get outmaneuvered. And for Jones to win this fight, I think he's going to go in there first round and try to play a very conservative game. I'm not expecting a knockout or submission victory in this match. This is going to be a war of attrition. It's going all 5 rounds. It's going to be a battle of the takedown. Who can get it? Who can sustain it? Who can land the most? Who can take advantage of that? Who can squash the other's offensive onslaught? And I think Jones, he's going to go in there and try to get this a ranged fight. That's his strategy. If he can keep this a battle of the jab, he's going to win. Cormier, obviously, his strategy is the opposite. That is getting close, smother him against the cage, take him down, make this a ground battle. I don't see Jones really relying on takedowns, even though, he could try for it. I just don't see him being able to outmaneuver Daniel Cormier on the ground game. So even though Jones does have that incredible striking, he's a great wrestler, has great submissions. Obviously, he's got the reach and height advantage going in this fight. You don't know, Daniel Cormier has had to make the weight cut. How's that affected him? He's had a pretty long layoff. He hasn't really been fighting the most incredible cast of fighters as Jon Jones has. So what I think is going to happen? I think this fight, I have to go out on a limb here. First card of the year, I'm going to go with the major upset. I think Daniel Cormier is going to defeat Jon Jones, and he's going to win the light heavyweight championship. I think he's going to do it by basically doing what he did to Frank Mir. He's going to basically go up against Jon Jones. He's going to put him up against the cage. He's going to prevent him from moving. He's not going to get the range out there. When you can't throw punches, what do? He's going to have him on the defensive, and I think it's going to be a pretty uninteresting fight for the first 2 rounds. Cormier's going to go in there, smother him against the cage, set up for the takedown. He's going to be cautious because we all know Jon Jones, he can put in a submission. He can elbow you from very, very short range. But I think Cormier is well prepared for this. And after that, I think round 3 is when Cormier finally he managed to get Jon Jones tired, and that's when he gets a takedown. And that's when he's not really going to go for the knockout, but he's going to try to keep him down on the ground. And then we're going to see Jon Jones in a predicament we've never seen him in before, and that's playing on his back defensively, being the one being dominated as opposed to the one doing the dominating. And I think it's going to play out for the next 3 rounds. And ultimately, I see Daniel Cormier cruising through this one to a unanimous decision victory. I think he wins all 5 rounds. I think it's probably not going to be the most exciting round, well, the most exciting fight as a whole. But I think it's going to be interesting. I think Daniel Cormier has a very staid, conservative strategy. And I think it's going to be enough to lift him over Jon Jones. And from there, you got Cormier Gustafsson. What does Jon Jones do? Who's he take on? Does he take on Anthony Johnson? Does he take on some of these other guys? Phil Davis, Rashad Evans again? It's a very interesting turn of events. And I think this is the match where Jon Jones, we finally see what his key weakness is. Cormier's going to exploit it, and he's going to win the title. Undercard matchups. Donald Cerrone taking on Myles Jury. Should be a very interesting matchup. Cerrone obviously goes in there. His strategy is simple. He gives entertaining fights. He will punch you, he will punch you, and he will punch you. Myles Jury, he's a lot more conservative. He's a more versatile fighter. His takedown offense and striking defense, I think, is certainly better than Cerrone, even though Cerrone obviously has some fantastic striking and takedown defense of his own. He's clearly a better submission fighter. That said, I like what I've seen out of Jury so far. I think Cerrone, he's too passionate of a fighter. He goes in there, he tries to go for the loop and knockout. He gasses way too easy. I think Jury's going to take advantage of that. And he's probably going to end up cruising to a split decision victory. Should be interesting. Should get some wild strikes going on there. But I think Jury is going to go in there with a more technical, intellectual striking game, more subdued wrestling game, and he's going to win. So I got Jury, split decision. Brad Tavares versus Nate Marquhardt in what I believe is a middleweight bout. I could be mistaken. Could be a welterweight. These guys are always moving on weight classes. Well, I don't really see this as being competitive on paper. As far as striking offense, it's a push. As far as reach, is a push. I think Tavares might have the height advantage, but across the board, Marquhardt, better striking defense, better takedown offense, better takedown defense, better submissions. Tavares has had some difficult times. Marquhardt definitely in the twilight of his career. Tavares could win this one, but I think Marquhardt goes in here and he wins by second round stoppage, TKO. Not enough to really salvage his career, but enough to kind of keep him on the roster for a while, or at least out of being sent to World Series of Fighting. We got a featherweight matchup. This is probably going to be the most one-sided fight on the entire show. You got Kyoji Horiguchi, who is that big sensation, the rookie flyweight. Did I call it a featherweight earlier? It's a flyweight matchup, taking on Louis Gaudinot. This match just completely favors Horiguchi across the board. He's got better offense, striking, better striking defense, takedown defense, all better. Got the height advantage, reach advantage. Gaudinot is the better submission fighter, but I think Horiguchi is just going to go in there first round. I see it either a knockout or a TKO. I don't think Gaudinot gets past the first round. And this guy puts another notch on his belt on his way to a title run before the year's over, is what I'm guessing. So I'm giving it to Gooch. That might be my lock of the show. If you had to put your money down on one, go for that finish, go for the first round, go for Horiguchi. And our curtain jerker for the main event, main card, Hector Lombard taking on Josh Burkman. I don't know, this is actually a really sort of tight-looking matchup on paper. Striking offense favors Burkman, but takedown defense and submissions kind of tend towards Lombard. Striking defense, takedown offense, and reach all pretty similar. 2 journeyman fighters, Burkman making his UFC return. I'm not sure if his first fight since coming back from World Series of Fighting or Bellator, wherever he's been, but I know it's one of his first since returning. Hector Lombard kind of came to the UFC, was a bust for a while, looked pretty impressive in a couple of fights earlier this year. Man, it's a tough one to call. I think Burkman is probably the better overall fighter, but Hector Lombard is more powerful. He's got the crazier striking, but he hasn't really been able to knock anybody out lately. I was really leaning towards Lombard going into this fight, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going to go with Burkman, split decision. Should be an interesting matchup, at least stylistically. And as for the rest of the fights on the card, Just going through very quickly. Danny Castillo versus Paul Felder. I'm going to go with Felder because we always need another Irish sensation on the company staff. Marcus Brimage versus Cody Garbrandt. I'm going to go with Garbrandt. Sean Jordan against Jared Cannonier. Cannonier, if you haven't looked him up, he's a really interesting character. His nickname is the Killa Gorilla. Or is it the Gorilla Killer? Well, something like that. Well, anyway, he works for the FAA. Undefeated. He's won 7 fights, 6 by stoppages, including 5 finishes first round. I think he makes short work of Sean Jordan and makes himself famous. So it might be the star-making performance, or the coming-out party, if you will, of the night. I'm going to give that to Cannonier, first round knockout. Oh, goodness, how the mighty have fallen. Evan Dunham, a guy who just 3 or 4 years ago we were talking about as being a possible lightweight champion. And now he's taking on Rodrigo Dam on a Fox Sports 1 show. It looks pretty competitive on paper, but I'm going to give it to Dunham. I think he's going to win by decision, unanimous. Amari Akhmadov versus Mats Nielsen. All you need to know about this one is that Nielsen is eating 10 significant strikes per minute in his UFC fights. Whenever you have a double-digit strikes absorbed statistic, that automatically makes me go for the other guy, so I'm going to go with Akhmadov by a second-round stoppage, TKO. And our opening matchup, Alexis Dufresne versus Marion Reneau. I'm going to go with Dufresne, just because I like her name better. So there you go. Those are my picks for UFC 182. We're going to have a new light heavyweight champion. Should have some interesting matchups on the preliminary card. And hopefully it's the start of many, many great cards after what has been, by and large, a pretty lackluster year for mixed martial arts. Well, those are my picks, and I'll be seeing you at the cage shortly.